Hi guys, my name is Steve Garr. A huge shout out to Project Inspire. Guys, thank you for bringing this together. The staff, the educators, the leadership of Project Inspire are dedicated, bringing Jews from all over the world together to bring them to the land of Israel, to show them the special, the holiness, the beauty that exists over here. So you guys do amazing work, and I want to say thank you for giving me this incredible opportunity. It's a privilege that I get to show you guys one of the most amazing places in Israel. My name is Steve Garr again. I live here in the Gush Etzion, which is just north of us where we're standing right now. I made Aliyah from South Africa. I serve on an elite counter-terrorism unit. I'm the first response to a terrorist attack that happens in the area. I'll also help run a special needs yeshiva. This allows young men and women come to learn in Israel for their year away. They come to learn, but they have special needs, Down syndrome, autism, and we give them that opportunity. The third thing I do, which I'm absolutely passionate about, is I love showing people around Israel, showing them our history, showing what it's all about. So I'm honored that Project Inspire has chosen me. I want to give a big shout out to David Sussman, his team is putting this production together. So David, thanks for making this happen. It's awesome working with such a professional. Guys, what we're doing over here is going to explore the holy city of Hebron. There are 4 holy cities in Israel, Jerusalem being number 1. Number 2 is the city behind us. This is the city of the patriarchs, in Hebrew, Hebron. The root of the word Hebron is chaver, which means friendship. But you know that it's much deeper, the word chaver. Where does that come from? From the word in Hebrew that says chirbur. What is chibur? It's a connection. When you connect to someone, that's how you build a friendship. Do you know that right behind me in this gorgeous valley is the ancient point where we believe there's a direct connection between heaven and earth. Guys, this is incredible. Our sages teach us in the oral tradition that heaven actually touches earth at that very spot. If you look in the center of those walls, it looks a little bit like a castle. That is the tomb of the matriarchs and the patriarchs. We believe that's a direct line between that spot on earth to the Garden of Eden, to Gan Eden. Unbelievable to be able to explore this area, to see the history, both modern history and ancient history that happened over here. The trials, the tribulations, what we have are the massacres. But I want to take you through this tour and how we're going to explore different neighborhoods over here. Different stories, personal stories of people who have lived here in ancient and both in modern times. This is an exciting tour, and I'm so excited that you guys have got this opportunity to be with me, to really connect on a deep level to this place. Because that's what it is about. Hebron is about chibur, is about connection. The connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel, the connection between us and the Almighty, the connection between each other. And I think this is an unbelievable opportunity that we get to connect to such a special place. So Project Inspire, thank you for making this happen. Join me on this awesome tour of this city of the matriarchs and the patriarchs. Abraham lost his wife at the age of 127. Sarah passed away. Abraham, looking for a burial spot, came to what was a field. Guys, forget the rocks, the stones, the brick structures. This was a field belonging to Ephron. Ephron, seeing that a world leader, Abraham, had lost his wife, said, "You can take this cave to bury your wife for free." Abraham said, "No, I will not take it for a gift." And then Ephron said, "If you want to pay for it," he told him 400 silver coins, which was way above the market price. Abraham, the first Jew, did not haggle. What was the reason? Why wouldn't he take it as a gift? Why wouldn't he take it or try and get the price down if it was too expensive? Abraham knew that this place would be disputed. He didn't want a gift. He wanted to pay the full value so that one day this would never come into any dispute, that this belongs to his family. It's where our forefathers are buried. It's where our matriarchs and patriarchs are the final resting place. He said, "I'm paying the full price, and I'm not going to bring you down. I'm not going to negotiate, because we want you to know that this is our land." This was 3,700 years ago. Guys, 1,700 years after Sarah is buried over here, comes a Jewish king, King Herod, at the time of the Romans, and this is over 2,000 years ago. He comes over here and he says, we need to beautify this place. What he does is he puts up these stones. These are the classic Herodian stone. We can see his signature mark, how he does the border over each stone. Probably one of the greatest architects of the ancient world, King Herod. We know Masada, we know the Second Temple, we all over Israel. He's probably the greatest architect in Israel in the ancient times. So this is the Herodian stones, and it's beautiful to see the size and how it's kept. We're looking at a structure that is 2,000 years old. That's real ancient history over here. So this is a little bit about the structure. This is about the architecture that you see, but I'd like to tell you how the Jews came back here in 1967. Guys, we're standing in the spot outside the Marat HaMachpelah, the cave of the couples, which for many years was known as the seventh step. The seventh step was a place just outside where Jews were allowed to go. They were not allowed to pray inside. And this all changed in 1967. We have the chief rabbi, Rav Goren, who drives his vehicle by himself, wanting to be one of the first soldiers to enter, to blow the shofar as the Israeli army enter Hebron. He drives in and he finds he's alone. He sees the Arabs are starting to surrender, and this is where Rav Goren comes. He finds his way to go to the door, the entrance just behind us at the Marat HaMachpelah, but it's locked. He uses his Uzi to try and shoot it open. Doesn't work. He pulls it with his car and eventually makes it in to be the first Jew in 700 years to pray inside the spot. What a feeling. And that's the chief rabbi of the Israeli army, Rav Shlomo Gorin, the highest ranking religious officer who came over here in 1967. You know, when ministers came to visit afterwards, they knew about how a Jew was disgraced by that seventh step where I'm standing over here, and a Jew wasn't allowed to walk in to the place of their forefathers and their foremothers proudly with their head held up high. And this was all changed. You know, one of our ministers, Rucham Ze'evi, his name's Gandhi, when he came to visit, he brought with him a sledgehammer, and he said, before I go in to pray to the Almighty, I'm going to destroy that which disgraced the Jew. A Jew now is in Hebron. A Jew now is have come back to their original heritage, to their birthplace. So he came over here with a sledgehammer, smashing that seventh step, and this is the place where I pray, actually, because I'm a Kohen, a priest, and priests are not allowed to go inside a burial site. So for me, this is the closest I can actually go, but the Jewish people now are able to go inside and not be afraid to really connect to their heritage, to their birthright, and be able to pray in one of the best places on earth and connect to the Almighty. Guys, we're standing in the ancient cemetery here in Hebron. This is the ancient Jewish cemetery that we can see dates back to the 1300s. 1290 was where we can actually find a written source for the cemetery. The graves over here go back many, many years. Famous rabbis, the Reshit Chochmah, the Stech Chemed, the Re'im, all are buried over here. These are really incredible giants and brilliant rabbis that lived in Hebron and had the merit to be buried over here. Unfortunately, in 1929, this cemetery was taken over by the Arabs and was destroyed in the massacre. The last time it was used was to bury the Jews that were killed in that massacre. So you can actually see their graves over here, and then it wasn't used. And it's then we have a young family, the Nachshon family, Sarah Nachshon, a powerful woman who brings her 3 children, brings 7 families, and they come back here in 1968 after the 6-Day War. It's over here that they are able to have more children, and in 1975 they have Avram Yedidia. Do you know, their idea was to take this young boy and to circumcise him inside the Marat HaMachpelah. This was the burial spot for the matriarchs and patriarchs. It was not allowed to do circumcision there because that burial site is shared with Muslims and Jews. According to Islam, wine is forbidden. So to show not to offend, we do not bring wine into the burial spot, and that meant we cannot do circumcision there. But Sarah said, I am determined. I want my son to have his Brit Milah. We give circumcision 8 days after a young boy is born, and she did it. You know, her husband packed a bag because he knew he was probably going to be arrested for doing such a criminal act. And what happened is that she was able to have and circumcise her son in the Marat Machpelah. Guys, you should know that they gave him the special name Avraham Yedidia, which means Abraham, our beloved, after the Abraham, our patriarch. Unfortunately, it's a sad story. At 6 months old, Abraham Yedidia died of sudden infant death syndrome. It was then that Sarah understood there was a calling. What she wanted to do, she said, I want to bury my son, although forbidden against Israeli law to bury and to use this synagogue, this cemetery. She said, I want to bring my son back over here. She drove, but the soldiers didn't let her through. She said, I'll go on foot. Wrapped in a prayer shawl, she carried the infant, 6 months old, up from the Tel Romeda, and she encountered a soldier, an officer, who broke down when he saw a grieving mother, said, it's too far, jump in my car. They drove, and he actually helped bury and dig the grave for this 6-month-old infant, Avram Yedidia. Guys, it was because that Sarah had this presence of mind that she said, I want to come back over here. I want to reignite. There must be a reason that God gave me this precious kid who's irreplaceable. If you don't mind, I'd love to read you a little excerpt that comes from the speech that Sarah Nachshon gave at her young little baby's funeral that happened right over here in the cemetery. I, Sarah, am holding my dead baby, Avraham, in my arms, and just as Avraham, our father, came to Hebron to bury his Sarah, so too I, Sarah, have come here to bury my Abraham. At this moment, I know why God gave me this irreplaceable gift. For only 6 months, He wanted me to reopen the ancient Jewish cemetery of Hebron. We're going to see the grave, and I want you to know it's because of her courage, because of her determination, that this ancient cemetery is now used by Jews to this day. Okay guys, follow me as we go to our next spot. As you can see just in the distance over there, I'm pointing at an Israeli flag. That is called the Tel Romeda. That's the highest Jewish little neighborhood here in Hebron. We're going to have a beautiful view up there and discuss a little bit of this area. Follow me as we go to the Tel Romeda. We're standing on Tel Romeda, one of the highest positions in Hebron. This is the highest Jewish community in terms of altitude, looking down, very safe. What we have now is a bunch of caravans. Wasn't easy setting up these caravans. Every inch of land over here was very difficult to acquire. In fact, unfortunately, if I can take you to 1998, there was a terrorist attack that happened over here. A famous rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Ra'anan, the grandson of the first chief rabbi of Israel, Rav Avram Cohen Cook. He was his grandson and a tremendous Torah scholar, and he was living up here in a caravan with his wife. A terrorist broke into his caravan, stabbed Rav Ra'anan. Thank God, the Rebbitzin, his wife, was able to escape through the window. It was then that the Arab set alight the caravan with a Molotov cocktail, and Rav Ra'anan was killed. He was a very famous man, as I said, a grandson of the chief rabbi, of the first chief rabbi of Israel, and many dignitaries came to the Shiva, the 7-day mourning period, where we console the mourners. And the prime minister at that time was Bibi Netanyahu. He came in and he saw the warning widow and said, money can't really help, but your husband gave such a tremendous contribution to the nation of Israel. He's learning Torah, he's coming to live over here. I want to give you this check. And he handed her an envelope. The Rebbitzin opened the envelope, and in front of the Prime Minister, this widow tore up the check. She said, we don't need money. You see, we fought for every inch of land over here. Every inch of land. It wasn't easy putting up these caravans. Do you know that the government at some stage gave a 24-hour grace period? It said, build whatever you want. What do you build in 24 hours? So they scrambled and said, what we will bring is as more caravans as we can to place on top of other caravans and next to it. In 24 hours, they brought as many caravans as possible. The clock ended one caravan was on a crane in the middle air. This opened up a Supreme Court case, where the Supreme Court, the judges had to decide whether the caravan hanging in the air was allowed to be placed over here, or because it hadn't been placed yet, removed from this area. The Supreme Court voted, and that caravan was allowed to be placed down. They said as long as it was in the air, it was on its way down, even though the 24 hours had expired. Do you see how everything over here is a struggle? Because it's very controversial land, we are completely surrounded by Palestinians, by Arabs who do not want Jews to return to this place. In the memory of Rav Ranan, the special rabbi, his widow has created an incredible yeshiva over here, a learning house where young men are studying to be ordained rabbis in this very area. But what's so incredible is what's underneath this incredible yeshiva, this residence, this Tel Romeda. Come and follow me. I want to show you an ancient archaeological ruin. Now guys, when we're talking about ancient times, you know, old in different countries. I'm from South Africa, you've probably picked up the accent by now. But guys, you know, we're talking about ancient times. We're going back to the early Bronze Age. This is 4,500 years ago. Guys, according to the Jewish tradition, we're at 5781 that year. This goes back to the original time period. We're going back to the matriarchs and patriarchs. As I've said, and I'll continue to say, it's not just that the matriarchs and patriarchs were buried here in Hebron, but this is where they lived. It's very possible that over here, down in these ruins over here, this was the neighborhood where Abraham himself lived. This is where Sarah, who gave birth to her son Yitzchak, we are standing in a place where the great matriarchs and the great patriarchs lived. It's incredible to stand in a spot so holy, so connected to our tradition, to be in a place so close to the second holiest place in for the Jewish people. We are in Hebron, the city of the matriarchs and the patriarchs. Guys, what we're standing in front of over here is a yeshiva. This is a place where young men get to study the scriptures on the deepest level. It will be a 5-year program that these students will do. It's called Hesder. This 5-year program allows a young man, once he finishes school at the age of 18 years old, he'll come and learn in a place like this. Now, this is a place where they combine learning and serving in the military. 2 years. They will learn scriptures. They will learn the Jewish oral tradition, the explanation to the Bible, to understand this age-old tradition that goes back many thousands of years, and this is where they would learn it. It's all written in Aramaic with many commentaries that go throughout the ages, and this is what young men are doing. You know, we believe as part of the Hesder program, religious Zionistic Jews will believe that what they're doing over here is protecting their nation in 2 ways. There's one way of protecting our nation physically with a weapon, and they do that. After 2 years of studying over here, they will go and protect their nation, serve on an infantry unit, serve on an elite unit, become commanders, tanks. Then, after they serve in the military, they'll come back, and for another maybe year and a half, they will study again. All in all, a 5-year program, not only protecting our country physically, boots on the ground, but also protecting our nation and our country spiritually by connecting to the Bible, connecting to our roots, connecting to our oral law, connecting to what makes us Jewish. Guys, we're very lucky to have found a soldier over here. We would love to show you the difference between the Israeli-made weapon, the Tavor, and the American-made gun, the M4, the one that I'm holding over here. So a lot of you know the M16. It's a classic, basic rifle, and this weapon, assault rifle over here, is the Israeli-made one. So what's the difference between them? We're going to go through. I just want to say thank you to this Givati soldier. We cannot show his face because obviously we want to keep him safe, but this soldier over here is one of the best units. In fact, the second best unit in the Israeli army, Givati. The best unit is obviously Golani. That's the unit I'm from. You ask any Israeli soldier, he'll tell you his unit is the best unit. No, just kidding, guys. We've got here a sharpshooter. using a Tavor, the Israeli-made gun. What's the difference? So guys, most weapons, that when you have a weapon, what happens is that you have the magazine. The magazine is not something we read, it holds the bullets, and that goes in front of the trigger. And you got the handle, and then when you put the magazine inside, just above that, you have the chamber. So that chamber is where your barrel begins. Now you know what makes a weapon accurate is the length of the barrel. The longer the barrel, the more accurate your weapon. You've got a short barrel, it's not accurate over long distances. The problem is when you've got a soldier, you want him to have a weapon that's close to his body, easy to maneuver, go around corners, look under places. You want a weapon that is compact. You can never ever make a soldier happy because it's either compact but not accurate, or very accurate and not compact. Israel designed the gun. This is the Tavor. So just having a look at the Tavor over here, you've got the back of the weapon. If you look, and we're going to ask the soldier just to show you, there is where we put in the magazine. Now normally the magazine goes in front of the trigger. This magazine is all the way at the back. So what they've done is move the whole shooting mechanism to the back of the weapon, which means the barrel starts here. So this soldier has a safety mechanism in here, and there's a makporek, and this is the beginning of the barrel. What I want to show you is the size of his weapon compared to mine. If you have a look at the size, my weapon is a lot longer. In fact, his Tavor is about 2/3 the size of this gun. But let's see, we have compact. Let's see who's got a longer barrel. So I'm going to put my barrel over on his barrel, and let's see which has a longer barrel. And if you have a look, you can see sticking out 1/2 inch longer is the Tavor. What we have an Israeli designed gun, which is more compact and more accurate than a regular weapon, using the bullpup design. This weapon is phenomenal. It's completely ambidextrous, which means if he's a right hand and he's shooting, the shells are coming out of this window. But you know, it's so amazing. If you turn that around, all I do for a lefty is take out that box, put it over there, and the shells eject away from the soldier, not into him. That's not possible to do on an M16. It's a pain for a lefty to shoot with this. Guys, it's completely versatile, this gun. He's got a special Trigicon sight. This is a reflex sight, very accurate, and that's on the top of the weapon. At the bottom, he's got legs. He could put a flashlight, a laser, completely modular, and that is something that's pretty incredible. He's put also a handle over here to make that gun really firm. It's close to his body for ejecting. If he's a right-hander, he ejects it over here. Left-hander, we've put another place for us to eject. Switching off your safety. You never take your hand off, so when I take off my safety, it's using my thumb. Lefty and righty can use this. A completely ambidextrous weapon. One last thing to tell you, and this is phenomenal. This shoots a 5.56 millimeter round, a NATO round. You know what's so cool? If you want to change this, you can take out this barrel, change the shooting mechanism, and you can put a 9 millimeter shooting mechanism with the barrel. So you can change it and modify the gun to suit the different needs. So this is Israeli gun. From Har Tavor, there was a great battle over there. The battle with Devorah, the prophetess. We had an incredible soldier. She wasn't big and tough, but she beat those Philistines, the Plishtim. How did she beat them? Not because of muscle, but because of using our brain. The greatest weapon an Israeli soldier has, and our friend from Ashkelon will tell you this, the greatest weapon we have is our brain. We made a clever weapon over here, and that's what makes a soldier good, is that we sharpen this weapon, because that's the most important thing. I want to thank you for helping us, showing us, and letting everyone see the difference between an Israeli-made gun, the Tavor, and an American one. Hi guys, we are now standing outside the Beit Hadassah Hospital. It didn't have that name originally. Originally in 1893, this hospital was made by the famous Baghdadi Jewish family. They brought in the money to make this hospital. This was a hospital that served for Jews and Arabs alike. There were Jewish and Arab doctors, nurses. There were patients that were served the Jewish and Arab communities. We shared hospitals together. This was life over here. 1909. The money to keep this hospital running came from the Women Hadassah organization all the way in the United States. Guys, thank you for that, because I want you to know this Hadassah hospital is the original. We have Hadassah hospitals in Israel, famous big hospitals that are really at the cutting edge when it comes to medical advances through the whole world. So this was the original one. Hadassah coming from 1909. This is 100 years ago, guys. The Hadassah Hospital, the original one, we're standing right here, and it's got quite a special story. So we're going to go down the stairs into that into the original hospital. It's been converted into a museum, so we get an understanding of what happened and what's the history over here in Hebron. Guys, we're in the Beit Hadassah Hospital over here, converted into a museum. This museum has different chambers, each chamber focusing on a different period in the history of Hebron. I want to focus on a very difficult history, the history of the 1929 riots. You can see the difficult pictures behind us. As we said, we had a wonderful relationship between the Jewish and Arab community pre-1929. What we have is British-controlled Israel. The British are in control over here, and under British rule, Jews and Arabs get on fantastically. In fact, in this hospital, we have Jews and Arabs being patients, being doctors, medical staff, nurses. There were Arab doctors who looked after Jewish patients and vice versa. Guys, there was a great relationship. This all changed in the 1929 riots, brutally turning on each other. These were communities that got on, gave each other livelihoods, were friends, looked after each other's children. What we see over here is not friendship. Unfortunately, this hospital, which I really believe was a symbol of coexistence, of tolerance, of looking out for one another, to see how two main religions, Muslim and Judaism, can really coexist together, that all ended in 1929. The beautiful Avraham Avinu synagogue was completely destroyed. When we're looking at the blood pouring down the steps, this is Jewish blood. Jews were mutilated. There were 435 Jews that we were able to evacuate, but the devastation, to see a beautiful holy Torah scroll torn and ripped, to see it being burnt, to see the children that became orphans. It's just horrific to go through all these pictures. 67 Jews were killed, but many, many were maimed, amputated their limbs. It was horrible to see how cruel one nation can be to another. So this left Hebron in devastation. It meant that we had to be evacuated, 435 Jews. It wasn't only Jews that were here in Hebron, but the uprising against the Jewish people in 1929 happened all over Israel. All in all, 133 Jews were massacred in those uprisings, and this was all under the noses of the British. The British were in control over here. They had the guns, and they were responsible for keeping the communities here safe. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. 133 Jews killed. Here in Hebron, we got hit the hardest. 67 Jews were slaughtered. This beautiful place where we're standing over here was burned down to the ground. And rather than being a place of healing, a place where people could come and doctors could take care of them, rather than a place of healing, it became a place of death. And very sad that this symbol of peace and coexistence was completely destroyed in 1929. But this is one of the most beautiful synagogues that was destroyed in the 1929 riots. It was created, the synagogue, 480 years ago, in 1540, by Rav Malkel Ashkenazi, a Jew who came here. He founded this synagogue. We know that there's incredible stories that happened. The synagogue being used for 480 years, 400 years. In 1619, there's an incredible story written by Rav Naftali Bachrach. He tells us he's the Emek HaMelech, the Valley of the King, how an incredible guest came here 400 years ago to the synagogue. Pretty incredible. But you know, in 1929, when the riots broke out, the Arabs vandalized this beautiful synagogue. They tore the books, they burnt the synagogue down. The Chazan was able to run out and save one of the Sifrei Torah. From 1929 until 1967, this synagogue lay desolate, but not just desolate, because it was a Jewish symbol, a beautiful synagogue burnt to ashes. The Arabs over here decided to make this a place where they kept animals. It was a goat pen. They kept goats inside. Very soon after that, when it became too disgusting, they made this the public toilet, a holy synagogue, the public toilets of Hebron, of this area. It lay at waste. After becoming public toilets, a garbage dump. People used to throw garbage. And you actually can see there's a dome on the top. We'll see when we're inside. There was so much garbage in this place, they actually threw the garbage through the broken windows on the top of this dome. So when the Jews were able to come back here, we not only restored this, the actual synagogue. It's not a museum piece. This is used on a daily basis. We pray 3 times a day inside this very synagogue, using that Torah scroll that was saved in the 1929 riots by the cantor of this synagogue. Guys, follow me inside and we'll hear an extraordinary story about a fascinating guest who was inside this very synagogue. Follow me, guys. I want to tell you a story that happened right over here in this synagogue. Was a couple of years after it was built. We're talking about 400 years ago. We have a very special rabbi, the Emek HaMelech, and in fact behind me is written the entire story in one of his books. He was a Kabbalist, and he wrote that it was Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, here in the second holiest city for the Jewish people. And what happened right over here is that 9 men were waiting for the 10th to start their minyan, to start the quorum where they were going to pray. But alas, all the Jews, for some reason that year, decided that they were going to pray in Jerusalem. So came Yom Kippur in the city of our Avot, the city of our forefathers, our foremothers, the matriarchs and patriarchs. There wasn't going to be a minyan. What would they do? They stood, and the sun was setting. Kol Nidrei is the prayer where we open, and they're holding the Sifrei Torah. The Torah scrolls are in their hands, and they say, what are we going to do? No minyan? How can we not have a minyan on the holiest day? All of a sudden, the door opens, and comes through a door a man with a big grey beard. They've never seen him before. What a miracle. They finally have the 10th men, and they pray the whole of Yom Kippur. Coming the end of Yom Kippur, they drew lots. Who was going to have this guest who helped them make the minyan come and break the fast to eat after Yom Kippur had finished? It fell on the Chazan, a very holy man. The Chazan was able to take the guest, and he said to the guest, after locking up the synagogue, they walked out through the alleyways on the way home. This guest was standing behind him, and as they turned the corner, the Chazan turned around and wasn't able to see. The man disappeared. He was frantic. He didn't know was he kidnapped. The man didn't talk a lot. He just didn't know, just came to make a minyan and then vanished. He had to break the fast. He had been fasting for 25 hours. After searching, he couldn't find the man anyway. He went home, broke the fast, frantic and afraid that something terrible had happened. He went, sat down on his couch. His wife said, don't worry, it's going to be okay. He fell into a deep sleep. And in that sleep, that old man appeared to him. That man with the big grey beard came up to him and said, stop worrying. Stop looking for me. He said, I don't understand. Who are you? He said, my name is Avraham Avinu, Abraham the patriarch. Holiest day of the year, there wasn't going to be a minyan. He said, I got permission from the ministering angels to be sent down over here to complete the minyan. I was only allowed to come for the entire Yom Kippur, and I came down and made the minyan. And it's incredible to stand in a place where we can actually feel the presence of the great patriarchs and matriarchs that are the foundation, the basis of the Jewish religion. Thank you guys for joining me here. Follow me and let's go outside. Guys, as we've mentioned before, there are 4 Jewish neighborhoods here inside Hebron. Now, Hebron is predominantly an Arab city. We're talking about 4 Jewish towns, little neighborhoods, not even a town, neighborhood within a massive city. When I say a massive city, we're talking about somewhere between 100 to 150,000 Arabs in this area. Now, I must be honest, I love coming to visit over here. I love being in the city of the matriarchs, of the patriarchs. I love coming to pray at one of the most important places on earth for a Jew to pray, here at the Marat HaMachpelah. But you know what? The only reason I'm able to come here is because of the incredible sacrifice that these Jews living here 24/7, I don't know if I could do it. You know, I've got a beautiful family, thank God. 5 children, a gorgeous wife. I must be honest. I don't know if I could live right here in this neighborhood completely surrounded by possible enemies. But these families that are here do. And they make that sacrifice so that Jews like myself, friends, tour groups, can come over here and enjoy being in the second holiest city of Israel. But it's incredibly challenging because it was 2001, March, where a young baby, 10 months old, was in her stroller. Her dad, Isaac Pass, was standing holding the stroller when a sniper, all the way from across the valley, all the way on that hilltop over there, aimed his weapon. He had a telescopic sight. He put the crosshairs on the young infant and squeezed the trigger. When we investigated this horrible terrorist attack, we found that this was a well-trained sniper. He knew exactly what he was doing. He aimed at the stroller, at the head of the stroller of Shalhevet Pass. This young infant, baby girl, 10 months old, was killed instantly. You know, that bullet went straight through her skull into the leg of her father, Isaac. Isaac was critically wounded. After shooting the baby, the sniper turned the weapon onto the father. The mother was here. Immediately after hearing the gunshots, she ran for her little baby, but found a bullet hole straight through the skull of her little child. It's a very, very sad, very extremely sad story that took place right over here. A tremendous, painful story. But you know, I get a little bit of comfort when I see the type of people who live here, who are willing to sacrifice being over here, maybe being surrounded by so many enemies. Their sacrifice has not gone for nothing. It allows us to be here and to really understand and to connect to our Jewish roots, to understand what this city is all about, to connect to the holiness of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. You know, we have here a memorial. This is a memorial for Shalhevet. You know, Shalhevet actually means a flame, and we can see over here the stroller that Shalhevet was in when the sniper from the hilltop shot her. We can see the baby inside and the flames going upwards. This is the name of Shalhevet. Shalhevet in Hebrew means a fire, a flame. A flame always rises. No matter how much it actually defies gravity, it goes up. These people over here defy being sad, being depressed. They get up like lions. They are a nation that get up like lions. And that's what we have over here. The response to terrorism, the response to pain, the response to a baby being massacred is that we rise up. You know, with these flames actually go up to a window that I'm pointing at. That window over there is actually where there's a very holy man, a scribe, a sofer stam. He's sitting in that very window inside that office, and there he is writing a Torah scroll. We have a Jewish law that when you write a Torah scroll, you have to be pure. When you write the holy name of God himself, when you write God's name, you have to purify yourself. And that's why sometimes when I'm standing here, I see this holy rabbi, the scribe, come down the stairs right past the spot going into the ritual cleansing bath. This is a mikveh. A mikveh in the Jewish tradition is how we purify ourselves. Going into the mikveh, he washes himself, purifies himself just before he goes back to his office to write God's name. In between purifying himself, he's not allowed to take phone calls. He's not allowed to talk. He's not allowed to do anything. He has to have full intent of the holiness of writing God's name. Do you know what's so beautiful for me? Is that he comes past the spot every single time he writes the holy name of God. The very spot where a young baby was killed. And he won't be deterred. And the families will not leave here. They stay here. And you know what we call a Torah scroll? We call it in Hebrew, it's a book of life that strengthens us, that gives us power. This book of life is not focused on death, but rather on how these people respond to pain and suffering. They get up, they rise up like a flame, they rise up like lions. Do you know that Shalhevet Pass's mother just lost her baby? Her husband was in ICU, intensive care unit in Jerusalem. We did not know if he would make it, but she had the presence of mind to go to the Israeli army and say, I will not bury my little baby. I will not bury my baby until you can assure me that this area, these 4 Jewish neighborhoods inside the heart of Hebron, are safe for the Jewish people. She had that strength to say, I'm not burying. Now, in Jewish law, to bury a baby, especially for a religious family, a religious woman, is one of the greatest acts, to take the baby and to send her back to her Creator. But she said, I will not do such a thing unless we can protect other babies, unless we can protect other Jews. In that very spot where a Palestinian sniper put the crosshairs on an infant, there in an Israeli army base. And at that army base, they are watching over Abu Snena, which is the Arab neighborhood, looking over this neighborhood, the Avram Avinu neighborhood. So it's over here that this young mother was able to make sure that the Jews living over here, the Jews coming to visit over here, are safe from snipers. You know, at that army base, if you look carefully, I want you to see that on the corner of that army base, you see a symbol of Jewish strength, and that is the symbol of the menorah, the candelabrum, that we light for 8 days on Chanukah, one of our festivals. And you know that when you look at that Chanukah, how the Jews were able to survive even against fighting a superpower, that we picked ourselves up and that we were able to win the war. The Hashmonaim were able to beat the Hasmonean Empire, were able to beat the greatest military force of that time, the Greek Empire. We were able to push them back and we won that war. You know, on that army base, we are able to show strength, that we can live here peacefully, to connect to our roots and to pray to the Almighty. This is the very spot where we remember the Jewish response to pain and suffering. We're going to get up like lions, just like the Hasmoneans got up in the history against the Greek Empire, just like a young mother after losing her baby while her husband is in critical condition is able to get up and say, enough. Jewish blood is not hefker. It's not meaningless. It should not be spilt in vain. Let's keep us safe from further terrorist attacks. It's been an honor showing you around, taking you and seeing Hebron, seeing the beauty and this mysticism, the holiness, the spirituality that exists here in Hebron, the connection between the Jew and the land of Israel, between the Jewish people and the holy spots, the synagogues, the ancient mikvahs, the spiritual ritual baths, the hills, the actual stones, where the greats, our great-great-grandfathers, the forefathers, the foremothers, this is where they walked. It's been an honor showing you around. I hope you guys were able to feel a connection to this incredible place, and I really hope that you'll be able to come and see it physically, not just through a video. Thank you guys, thank you for joining me, and I want you to stay safe and healthy.